Hey you guys, I'm Meredith Holly. I'm a lawyer and certified life coach and best-selling author. And I help employees stop sexual harassment without quitting their jobs. And one of the ways I do that is by working with companies on creating healthy workplace cultures. So I am feel a little bit emotional today because I these journalism students at the University of Oregon did a research project on me, and I just looked at their report, and it had these audio recordings of a few of my clients, and they just were so amazing and said the coolest things. Hey Rebecca, say hi if you can hear me. So later this afternoon I get to go and see their presentation about solutions to sexual harassment and Me Too. Rebecca, I was just saying that these journalism students did a research project on me, and so I get to see them present on it, and I'm going to put a link to some of what they said, and it has recordings of my clients, and it's so lovely. So today I want to talk about what is sexual harassment really. It's kind of a confusing term, and often what I see is a lot of my clients come to me and they didn't even realize that what they were experiencing qualifies as sexual harassment. Can you hear that loud yard work? I'm just gonna close the door. And so what I like to do is just go through some examples, but also I also want to talk about what sexual harassment is under the law, but also like what sexual harassment is in reality and how to stay aware of it. A lot of times people come to me and they were experiencing sexual harassment from someone they used to date, from someone who is maybe someone that they even like, but they just feel like there's this inappropriate thing happening and they don't know how to manage it. And that is totally one version of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment isn't always something that happens from like an evil, maniacal, terrible person who is intending to hurt you. Sometimes it happens with friends. Sometimes it happens with people we used to date. Sometimes it happens even when we're in the workplace with someone that we are dating, and it's just a way of using power in the workplace in a way that's not okay. So I get this question a lot when I'm at speaking events and I'm presenting, and I often get someone who says, what about people who are just really sensitive? Like, how can men especially navigate workplace scenarios if they work with somebody who's just really sensitive? And my opinion about that is there's not someone who is just really sensitive. What's actually happening is that you're not seeing the larger picture of their life experience. So when people are coming to work, they're not coming to work as just blank slates who just focus on their jobs and have tons of confidence and are the same as you. They have a different life experience than you, and they bring that life experience to their workplace setting. And so you could make a joke, and that could have been the 100th time somebody has heard that joke that week, and it's not funny anymore. And they might have even laughed the first time at kind of uncomfortably, and they might not like it the 100th time somebody makes a joke about their body. This is true for a lot of women. A lot of women get scrutinized, have their bodies talked about in demeaning ways pretty consistently. We see it on TV. In culture, it's pretty acceptable to criticize women and men based on their weight. With women, it's often in a sexualized way. And so when you're seeing someone react in an exaggerated way to a comment, you might think that they're too sensitive, but if you saw the larger picture of their life, often you might not think that they're as sensitive as you initially thought that they were. I had someone come to me the other day and say, who I've known for a while, and she said, I understand what you do now. I totally get it. she had had this experience with a work colleague where he made a joke about breast size, about her breast size. And she just was like, in the moment, like, this is so confusing. And I don't know exactly how to explain to him that this is not the only time my body has been criticized in a sexual way. Like, this makes you look unprofessional. It's not just a joke when you're commenting on someone's body. And so one of the ways that this is one of the things I look to about this to know if something is sexual harassment, to know if something is kind of an abuse of power, is Anne Clark's the rock test. So you can look it up. I just love everything that she wrote in this. It's a blog post on Medium, and it's really brilliant. And it's the rock test for how to not get accused of sexual harassment for men. And the test is, if you picture this person as Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, would you say the same thing? So with jokes about body image, if you're joking about a woman's breasts, would you also joke about Dwayne Johnson, The Rock's penis size? Very likely not, because he could crush your skull with his bare hand, right? So, so when women, and sometimes it's men, but the majority of sexual harassment experiences are women, and part of that might be that men are really discouraged from owning that they don't like sexual attention. So it's hard to tell how much the behaviors are actually gendered and how much the experience of harassment is more gendered. Anyway, but if you're a woman who's consistently hearing demeaning comments about you, having your body talked about in critical ways, hearing yourself talked about as like a sexual object, and then someone comes to you and makes a joke that they think is quite innocent, you might have a reaction that is based on your entire life experience, and that doesn't necessarily, in my view, make a person sensitive. It's just a point of inquiry where you can be curious about what this woman's experience really is and what you are bringing up in that experience. But also ask yourself, would you have said the same thing, made the same criticism to Dwayne Johnson, The Rock? So I also want to talk about, from a legal standpoint, what is sexual harassment. And I just like to get this information out there because I think we a lot of times have an exaggerated idea of what sexual harassment is. And so we don't take action because we expect the law to step in and make some kind of change or enforce something. And then I see people get really disappointed at what the law can actually offer. So Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is the federal law that governs sexual harassment and discrimination in general. So it basically says if you get fired, if you get demoted, if you get reassigned to a worse job, if you have some kind of, it's called a tangible employment action, and you can prove that it was because of your gender, then you might have a successful legal claim. It also says if you're experiencing harassment based on your gender, based on who you are as a woman, as a man, as non-binary, whatever your gender is, if you're experiencing harassment that's targeting you based on that, and the harassment is severe or pervasive, and it's so offensive that a reasonable person would find that it creates an atmosphere that is abusive, intimidating, or hostile, then you could also have a successful legal claim. A successful legal claim often looks like 3 years of paperwork and talking to random people about very personal experiences. A successful legal claim rarely looks, if ever, like what you see on TV. And so it's not a very thrilling, like stand up for your rights kind of experience. A lot of times it's just a lot of back and forth. And it's a lot of talking about money a lot of times, which often feels offensive to people who have experienced something that they feel was really oppressive and really personal to them. So states sometimes have higher protections than the federal law. Not every state does. Not every state even really has a mechanism for enforcing the federal law. So you have to go to the federal EEOC for enforcement. So what does this mean? It means that unfortunately, most sexual harassment is legal. So they're actually at this point, and I don't think this is the way it should be, probably, but it's the way it is. There are almost always fewer ramifications for actually sexually harassing someone than there are for speeding in your car or like running a red light or something like that. In some countries, they're instituting violations for harassment, like for street harassment, for whistling at somebody or intimidating them on the street. And I think we should do that here because I think it creates a quick ramification for behavior that actually leads to something dangerous. So why is this important? This is important because those of us who see discrimination, who see sexual harassment, are the ones who need to make it change. We're the ones who know, who understand what it is. And so we have a lot of power in being able to identify it and being able to make a shift around it, as long as we understand power dynamics and don't use it to abuse ourselves and discriminate against ourselves, right? We, at this point, can't sit back and expect the law to be the one that changes it. And we can't even really look to the law to create the standard of what's acceptable behavior or not, because if you're thinking about sexual harassment that is severe or pervasive, that is like stuff that is happening all the time, or that is like a physical danger to somebody. Once it's gotten that far, it is so destructive to your company. It's so destructive to efficiency, to everything that you're producing in your work, that we, each of us who sees this, can't sit back and wait for it to get that bad, in my view. And so the one way that I've found to really shift, to really like make it clear what sexual harassment is and shift the workplace culture to make it healthy, even when there's sexual harassment happening, is to understand power dynamics and understand your own power in any given situation, and notice any place of limitation and how you can overcome it. So this is true on both sides. This is true for employers who really want to have a healthy, productive workplace culture and not have something get to the level where it's severe or pervasive, but it's also true for employees. Think about the amount of time that we invest in education. Think about the amount of time that we invest in trainings and certifications. And 1 in 5 women leaves a career still after all that education because of sexual harassment. It's not okay. And your career is worth it. Your company is worth it. The work that you're doing is worth understanding power dynamics and making these shifts. I want to just come back. People's responses to sexual harassment or to random comments, if you don't want to call it sexual harassment, or jokes that are based on gender, they are usually reasonable given the context of that person's life. So if you have somebody who you think is having an exaggerated response, then you know something, you have some insight into this person, the rest of this person's life. So if you think about it as a vase, and you have this beautiful vase in your house, and somebody bumps it and it cracks a little bit, and then somebody else bumps it and it cracks, and pretty soon there's a crack all over, and then your joke in the sexual harassment analogy is the final crack that shatters the vase, right? That doesn't mean that the vase was fragile because of all these cracks that were in there, that were never repaired, that were never healed, that contributed to a larger response once the vase cracks. And that's what's usually happening when someone's having a sensitive reaction. Sexual harassment can look like jokes. It can look like comments based on gender. It can look like touching that's unwanted. It can look all kinds of different ways. But if you see sexual harassment, if something triggers you and you're like, there's something off about this, I don't feel good about this, it is worth saying something in the moment or learning how to, if you're not comfortable doing that right away. I know when I was going through sexual harassment, I was not comfortable saying something in the moment, and I had never been that way before. I had never had a problem with it, but my boss would touch my shoulders and I would think, why am I not stopping him? I've never not stopped someone before. And I've heard that over and over again from different clients, that they had always been able to stop things in the past, and this situation, just for whatever reason, was stopping them. There is a solution to that. So if you've ever felt like self-loathing after a comment from somebody about your body, if you've ever worn different clothes to work to protect yourself, if you've ever thought maybe you just won't fit in at work because you're a woman, or here's how it usually looks, maybe I just don't fit in at work because there's something wrong with me, then it is time to make a shift. Or even if you just want to help other people, we really need to talk. I want to talk to you about power dynamics and how you can make a shift in like what you could create, what you can change in your workplace to make it really healthy, if you've experienced any of these things. So I'm going to put a link to the U of O, the U of O article with the audio recordings from my clients, and I hope that you listen to them. One of the things that one of them said is, I like who I am now in ways more than I like who I was before the harassment started, because of all the work that she's done. And I just feel so impressed by her and impressed by all the work she's done. So I hope that you take a chance to listen, and thanks for listening to me.